As we all know, there's a lot of awesome furry films out there, from the big names like Zootopia and Robin Hood to smaller name films like Ernest and Celestine. In fact, we even ranked some of them in a video a little while back. Sadly though, not every furry was created equal, and for every good furry film out there, it does seem like there are several bad enough to make you want to cry. Hello, I'm Shadow Raccoon, and today I'm going to be taking a look at some furry movies that really suck. As ever, before I start this list, I just want to say that, your opinion on films might differ from our opinion here. When creating this list, I used a combination of review scores, box office statistics, and forum comments to give me this list. We all have guilty pleasures when it comes to liking bad movies, so please take no offence if your favourite film just happens to be in this episode. Those of you familiar with previous episodes of this series will know that in the past we have been quite critical of films that waste all their money and efforts on getting an all-star cast in order to try and make the film better. Sadly, this is quite a common thing, and Animals United is unfortunately yet another one of those. A 2010 3D animated movie from Germany, directed by Reinhard Klus, Animals United is originally based on a book called, and forgive my not very good German here, Die Konferenz der Tiere, which translates roughly to the Animal Conference. Won't lie, that doesn't sound like the most exciting book. I mean, what could be more fun than a conference, right? So the film itself is set in Africa's Okavango Delta. No idea there if I've actually pronounced that right. Sorry. The lead characters are a meerkat named Billy and a vegetarian lion named Socrates. Wait, hang on. A vegetarian lion? Isn't that the same concept as in Leo the Lion, that terrible movie? Did they seriously steal from that train wreck of a film? Anyway, so the annual flood has failed to arrive in the river Delta. Water is scarce, and Billy and Socrates set out to find more water in order to stop the animals fighting and to unite them. See what they did there, yeah. On their journey, as you'd expect, they meet up with many other animals to form bonds with them. These animals include a Tasmanian devil named Smiley, a couple of Galapagos Island tortoises, and also a polar bear named Sushi. Yay bears! I'm just forced to do it. It's a contractual obligation. The animals on their journey soon discover that an evil businessman, imaginatively named Mr. Smith, has built a dam for his luxury resort, stealing all the water. A poacher then kidnaps the lion, predictable much? And the other animals escape and have to devise a plan and use all their skills together to try and rescue Socrates. Getting the films confused here. Damn, this sounds so much like Leo the Lion. Anyway, as you'd expect, there's a big rescue plan, some mild but never believable danger. They save the lion with the help of the evil businessman's cliched daughter, and the animals bond together to charge the dam, breaking it and bringing back water to the river. The film then ends, however, not with the animals enjoying their newfound appreciation for water, but in New York. Because they had to rip off Madagascar or something, I guess. Oh boy. So yeah, as you can tell, the plot of this movie isn't exactly anything to quite write home about. It's very dry, it's slow going, there's little humour, and it certainly doesn't try to take any risks or do anything at all creative. If you have trouble sleeping though, it could be just what you need to help you fall asleep at night. So I guess it has that going for it. The animation, well, that's okay. By 2010 standards, it's not great, but it's not pulling out your eyes terrible, like Leo the Lion. But you could expect a lot better. But I mean, what really makes this film stand out as one that sucks, though, is the casting. Now, the German language version of this movie, from what I can tell, is quite humble to it being a relatively low-budget movie. And it includes both a comedian named Ralf Schmitz and the voice of Scar, actually, from the German dub of The Lion King, Thomas Frisch. So, nothing big. The English dub, on the other hand, this goes all out, and includes what I call a buffet of the top-tier British TV and film stars. Oh boy, yes, this includes James Corden, yes, the voice of Peter Rabbit.
Hey, I like Peter Rabbit.
Stephen Fry, Joanna Lumley, Andy Serkis, and even Dawn French. I hate to think how much getting all of that talent cost them, but there's some big names there. And proving the point that a star-studded cast cannot make a bad film good, the reception for this movie was lukewarm at best, clocking in at a not great 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics describe the movie as probably great if you're free, but quite an endurance test if you're not. Dismal, frequently dull, badly written European animation that squanders a talented cast, and my favourite review comment, Madagascar. Brilliant. Audiences were just as harsh on it too, with many feeling duped by the all-star cast, criticising its preachy, eco-friendly feel, and questioning the humour.
A film so bad, it has forced me to spend time creating an IMDb account to warn others about it. Animals United should not require a lengthy review or synopsis to achieve this aim. Despite being a feature clearly made for under 12s, the film has a brutal environmental and political agenda of breathtaking ambition. This is presented with so little nuance or charm that, despite all the perfectly good arguments for ecological action, you somehow despise the animals who star.
With lackluster animation, and ego-inflating cast list, and dull storyline, Animals United is a furry movie that really does suck. The exploration of space is certainly one of man's greatest achievements. Creating a movie about some chimpanzees going to space, though, was certainly not. In 2008, director Kirk DeMicco, the man behind such beloved films as Racing Stripes and Here Comes Peter Cottontail, whatever the hell that is, brought us Space Chimps, a 3D animated comedy science fiction film, as you guessed, with chimps. The story is, relatively predictable and somewhat uncreative. Humphrey, grandson of the first chimp in space, is working at a circus as a cannonball. At the same time, an unmanned NASA space probe finds its way into a wormhole and ends up landing on a planet that resembles Earth. The team at NASA want to regain their technology, and in an attempt to honour his family's past tradition of going into space, Humphrey enlists with NASA to become part of the space crew to help go and recover the probe. In search of the missing probe, they travel to the planet where it crash landed to find the whole planet has been taken over by evil tyrant Zartog, who has been using the technology in the probe to enslave the population of the planet. As you'd expect, this then leads to the usual sort of plot devices, including getting into trouble, getting caught, and of course a few naff fart jokes thrown in just for good measures. Meanwhile, with all this going on, there's this really unnecessary subplot stuck in back on Earth involving an evil senator who wants to disband the space program. This bit could just be cut from the movie completely, and no one would have noticed. It's so unnecessary. But with the film already a lean 1 hour 20 minutes, I guess they needed everything they could to actually make this legally a movie. Anyway, a long story short, or more like short story even shorter, the chimps, of course, as you expect, recover the probe, stop Zartog, save NASA's funding, hooray, and there's a big party at the end. So, naff plot aside, the film is packed with not very funny jokes and quite a lot of bad sight gags. The animation itself for this movie really doesn't hold up very well, especially considering it was a 2008 movie, when we were getting films like WALL-E, Kung Fu Panda, and Horton Hears a Who, all of which looked a million times better. Compared to these films, Space Chimp looks cheap, dated, and something that just doesn't help sell this already not very good plot line. Cast-wise, this film features some well, I'd say talented actors. I mean, it's got Patrick Warburton in it, who, to me, and I guess our camera bird is probably best remembered as Crunk, in our camera bird Rector's favourite movie, The Emperor's New Groove. And multi-award winning actor Jeff Daniels, so, the talent pool's there. But it does show, once again, that you can spend all you want on casting, but it doesn't make the film any better. Reception-wise, this film was, as you'd probably expect by now, largely panned. Rotten Tomatoes rates this film at a rotten 33%, with the summary stating that Space Chimps' cheap animation and overabundance of monkey puns feels especially dated in a post-Wall-E world. The audience score is actually the same in this case, at another 33%, with people commenting things like this.
Oh, another generic animated piece of tosh. The voice acting is terrible.
Hands down, the worst movie I've ever seen. It felt like a submission from a computer animation student project. Don't waste your precious money or time.
With an uninspired plot, a dump truck load of bad monkey puns, and piss-poor animation to boot, Space Chimps is a furry movie that really sucks. Released in 1992 and directed by Phil Roman, the man behind Film Roman, who you may likely know from being closely involved in The Simpsons, comes a long-awaited movie starring everyone's favourite cat and mouse team. With so much history and such a simple concept to follow, it'd be hard to make a film like this suck, right? Well, here's a story for you all. So, as a child, one of my favourite things to watch was Tom and Jerry. I loved the cartoon. I pretty much wore the VHS tapes out. I was that obsessed with it. I'll always remember the movie coming out and begging my mum to take me to see it in the cinema. She never gave in and always insisted that I just wouldn't enjoy it, so I never actually got to see it. It came, it went. A year later, it came out on VHS, and I finally was allowed to see it. Now, I'd always assumed that my parents were just being kind of cheap. They didn't want to take me because it was expensive and, being a kid, I was young, I probably would have sat still. So, there was a young me sitting down to watch this film for the first time, expecting to just learn that my parents had lied and love it. But they were right. I hated every minute of it. The film pretty much just destroyed my love of the franchise. It put me right off Tom and Jerry's. Being an irrational kid and all, I remember, I just binned it all. I just put it all aside and just didn't watch Tom and Jerry for a long time. Now, fortunately, as an adult, I can look back a little bit more and understand and have a look and see what made me feel that bad, sore about the film. And I looked at it again, and it really is an awful, awful movie. So, the story of the actual film itself, it's quite straightforward. Tom gets separated from his family when they move and ends up having to fend for himself on the streets. Homeless and alone, Tom and Jerry discover they can speak, quite frankly ruining the moment, and the film franchise entirely in the first 15 minutes, if you ask me. On the streets, they meet a dog who they befriend, and they eventually come across an orphan too, named Robin, who has run away from the evil guardian and their lawyer husband. Before they're able to hatch a plan to go somewhere safe, a policeman catches Robin and takes her and Tom and Jerry back home to her evil guardian. While there, Tom and Jerry overhear that Robin's father is actually still alive, and attempt to tell Robin. However, before they get the chance to tell her, they're shipped off to the animal pound. But don't worry, they soon escape from there, as you could expect, and tell Robin anyway, who then runs away again, this time with Tom and Jerry, to go and find her father. Ooh, riveting. Unhappy that she escaped, Robin's evil guardian puts a bounty on her head, ensuring the hunt for her, and it makes hunting for her father an eventful one. Finally, they do end up finding her father, not before having to be saved from a burning cabin with even more hijinks, and as you can predict, Tom and Jerry get to live with Robin and her father, and everyone lives happily ever after. Aww. Now, that's obviously a heavily abridged version of the story, but as you can likely tell, there's not it's a bit of a mess for story. It's all over the place. It doesn't stay still for 5 minutes. And I remember being thrown off by the pace when I was younger. And, it's super predictable and just feels kind of more dull rather than exciting. Now, the story alone is passable, but for me, what made the film really bad, and I touched on it a little earlier, was that, it features Tom and Jerry talking. Now, it's not just me saying that, critics agree here, that it was just not needed. They say that, yes, it did help with the plot in this case, but they could have done something with the characters not talking, and also Jerry's voice really, really pisses me off in it. I don't quite know why, but, awful. But even worse for me was the songs. I'm sorry, but I didn't ask for a Tom and Jerry musical. No one did. And in my opinion, it did not need any songs. And I recall fast-forwarding through them as a kid because I just hated them. They were boring. And I'm not going to lie, I think as an adult, I probably would still skip the songs. Although, you say that, the soundtrack is actually one of the better received parts of the film. So maybe it's just me in that one. But receiving pretty much negative reviews across the board, this film, however, sits with a 14% score on Rotten Tomatoes, with comments complaining about the plot, the talking, as you'd expect, but praising the visuals. And I guess that's fair. It looks like Tom and Jerry. It's not bad. The audience was a bit more receptive than critics to it. However, it's not hard to find people who disliked it, especially long-time Tom and Jerry fans, such as in this review.
I'm a Tom and Jerry fan, and I can't believe how they released this movie. It's bad. Really bad. Lacks the T&J essence. The music sucks. Please, don't waste your time watching this crap and stay with the T&J classics, with their awesome animation and their simple but funny stories.
With unnecessary voice acting, a predictable plot, and being crapped on part of my childhood, Tom and Jerry is a furry movie that sucks. So, there we go. Those were some furry movies that really do suck, and I don't actually recommend you go and watch. Do you agree? What movies should appear on a future episode of this? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, or consider supporting us on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. I'm Shadow Raccoon. Fiddle Rabbit says hi, he'll be back next week, and we'll see you next time. Bye everyone!